Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind, digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling children and parents to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces, and we actually just dropped a thought piece this past Sunday. So definitely be sure to meander over to our website and check out our online content. If it is the case that you're interested in our listening alternatives, well, we're available on 10 different podcast platforms, and we've offered you the links in the description down below for your listening leisure. As is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like our conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back, everyone. To those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And this week, our topic of discussion is mental health. So I had the thought and the idea brought to my attention really about aimlessness. So I wanted to take this segment to discuss aimlessness, but flipped. So rather than talk about aimlessness, I'm going to talk about momentum. And what I'm going to do is provide you with some parameters and some defining metrics for what momentum is, so that you can establish in your life whether or not you feel that there is momentum as you strive and aim to achieve the goals that you have for yourself. And the reason why this is our topic of discussion for mental health is because aimlessness, feeling like we don't have direction, feeling like we're not sure where we're going, that can really have an adverse effect on our mental health. And sometimes we're so focused on the fact that we feel aimless that we don't pivot and reorient ourselves towards the types of activities and engaging in types of behavior that helps us regain focus and establish momentum. But I'm going to provide a bit of color to my definition of momentum. For those of you who do not know, I have worked in project management for pretty much the entirety of my professional career. I have my Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification. I was actually in the process and still at some point plan on pursuing my Agile certification. So I'm going to bring some project management tenets to my defining parameters around momentum. And I'm going to provide my own color and my perspective as it relates to what momentum is and what momentum isn't. And the point of this discussion is really to then give you a sense of when it is the case that we're not moving in tandem with momentum, then it makes sense that we feel aimless. And I think that my life anyway, I manage it a bit like a project. I guess I project manage my life, and I have very rarely felt aimless and very rarely felt like I was doing things without direction. So figured, why not share these tenets with the people and see how well they gravitate towards these tenets. So I'm going to start with is and isn't. I think that's the way that we're going to focus these discussions, and it's going to be a two-part series because I think that when we think about momentum, there are two forms of momentum that I want to bring to your attention. We have progress, we have productivity. And my first segment, part one of this two-part series, some of my favorites, is going to be about progress. It's going to be how momentum translates by way of progress. So without further ado, let's check out what it is. So when we say progress, when we say momentum, first key point about progress, about momentum, is that you're moving towards objectives that you've pre-established. And the emphasis is on pre-established. You cannot feel like you have momentum and that you're accomplishing something and that you're pushing forward if you're pushing forward towards nothing really specifically. So planning is crucial for any sense of progress and productivity, for any sense of momentum and forward moving. So you have to start with planning, right? So it's very easy to feel aimless if you don't start with a plan, or if you're planning along the way, or if you don't have specific objectives that you're trying to accomplish. But if you want to make a point to feel like there's progress, if you want to establish momentum, then pre-established objectives is a necessary first point. Now, that brings us to our second point on progress and momentum, and that's identifying blind spots. And if as you're moving towards specific objectives, as you're clearing through tasks and as you're clearing through different activities, you're also not being made aware of your blind spots, then there's something missing. Because typically when you're striving towards an objective, it's undiscovered terrain. So you're going to uncover opportunities for learning, you're going to have blind spots unmasked, and you want to be primed for that. So that's not something that you want to discombobulate you or to frustrate you or make you feel discouraged. That's actually a sign of forward momentum. It's a sign of movement. It also means you're moving up the learning curve. And when we're on a project, we're typically learning as we go, right? So we're discovering as we go, we're learning as we go, all the while putting our skills and our expertise at work. But you want to make sure that there's learning taking place as you're unearthing blind spots, and that everyone who is helping you strive towards what it is that you're achieving is trying to derive the most amount of learning that they can by unearthing those blind spots. So I think recognizing what you didn't know and now you know, and then repositioning because now you know it, is a crucial step for recognizing that there's momentum, there's progress, there's buildup, there's anticipation taking place. Which brings me to my last point on what progress is, and that is it involves evolving priorities. Yes, when you're progressing, when there's momentum, your priorities aren't static, they're dynamic. They shift and change as the project grows and evolves, as you move towards these objectives, as you accomplish different objectives. They let you know what other objectives need to be added to the terrain. So evolving priorities is a huge indicator that you're establishing momentum, that you're progressing forward towards your specific objectives. The fact that your priorities shift and fluctuate as you're moving forward is also a great indication that you're moving forward and that you're not aimless. You are right on target. For me, those are three key performance indicators around momentum and progress, and they are the typical things that I would check in and out for if I'm managing a project. They're actually the things I check in for when I'm managing my own personal life. So there you have it. I've given you a personal life skill that I love. So now I want to talk about what progress, what momentum isn't. And I think that it's easy to get these things confused, but if you're managing a project, I think you're very clear on what tasks are time consuming but aren't progressive, and what tasks are time consuming but they are progressive. So I think it's important that we recognize that we're all very cognizant on what tasks take away time but aren't actually helping us establish momentum. And then the more that we're aware of the specific tasks that don't help us to establish momentum, the less time that we can spend on them, of course. And these are my opinions. Like, I think any project manager would have their own idea on what tasks would signify progress and what tasks wouldn't. I think we would pretty much be aligned on what would signify progress. But what would not signify progress, I think that is a little bit more subjective. So these are my top 3 tasks that for me, doing them is not a signal of progress. I mean, it doesn't mean they don't need to be done. Like sometimes they still need to be done, but not a signal of progressive movement, for sure. So the first one is menial tasks. Now, if menial isn't a word that you are familiar with, it means like inconsequential tasks. So these are little administrative tasks. These are the things that we do that take our time away from like big, important objectives. It doesn't mean that they don't need to be done, but we need to really be mindful as to how much time we allocate to doing menial tasks. And for me, like menial tasks, like administrative tasks, data entry, things that we can automate, things that we can digitize, things that we don't necessarily need a thinking human to accomplish. I think these are menial tasks. I don't think any person should have to dedicate too much of their time and energy to do these specific tasks. I mean, unless this is something you personally enjoy doing. These are things that I would immediately build a workflow, automate, and not have too much of my own mental energy put towards, because it doesn't matter how much time you put into these specific tasks, it doesn't signify progress or momentum. Which brings me to my second point, which is busy work. And busy work is just kind of like the work that you need to do, or the work that you choose to do to keep you from the work that needs to be done. And a lot of the times when people are procrastinating, to convince themselves that they're not procrastinating, they do busy work. So they do work that keeps busy, but it's not actually progressive work. And I am someone, I really am not a fan of busy work. I like to focus my attention on work that really does create impact and that is meaningful, and that I see the way that it's going to, ripple outwards. I do not like really to put a whole lot of my time and focus on busy work. And so with all of that to say, busy work is like distracting work. It's the kind of work that you can do and shut your brain off. Like you don't really need to think to do it. And some busy work is necessary, right? Like Sunday chores, necessary. But you can't spend all of your waking hours like distracting yourself from progressive work by doing busy work. So very important that if you're trying to maintain momentum in your life, if you're trying to maintain a sense of progress and forward movement, that you really limit the amount of time that you spend doing busy work. Which brings me to my last point on what progress isn't. And I think this is a point that many people are going to agree with me on if you're still here watching this segment with me. And that's pointless touch points. I am not a fan of pointless touch points. And that's when you're just kind of having conversations on the tasks that you're doing, whether they're progressive tasks or whether they're, busy work objectives, but there's no real value from those touch points. And I think so many of our meetings, so many of our touch points don't end with movement. They don't end with progression. They don't end with new priorities, with new objectives, with unearthing blind spots. And for me, if these things aren't discussed, if they aren't collected in a meeting, then that touch point proved pointless, right? So if we're having a meeting, it's because we're establishing objectives or establishing that we're moving towards our objectives. It means that we are unearthing our blind spots and discovering the things that we've learned. And it also means that we're all kind of collectively agreeing on what our evolving priorities are. Now, if none of those things are taking place in your touch point, if none of those things are taking place in the meetings that you're having, then it makes sense that you feel stuck. It makes sense that you feel like, aimless and directionless, because that touch point really hasn't given you much value. Touch points just to talk about what you're doing, but not talk about what you need or the impact of other people's work or how, you intend on moving forward in the ways that I described, I think is a time waster, a big one. And I am someone I value my time, and I value my time whether you're paying for my time or whether it's my free time. I always attribute so much value to my time because there's so many different things I want to do with my time. So I don't ever want to feel like I'm in a conversation and then mid-conversation I'm like, well, this is a waste of my time. I don't really see the point of this conversation. I don't want to feel that way. And if we're having a conversation that is meant to be be productive if I categorize it as a progressive conversation, that, there's momentum to be established in this conversation and that's not happening, then chances are that thought has popped into my head once or twice. In any case, I wanted to make sure that all of us had a collective understanding of what progressive, what progress actually meant, what momentum actually meant, and our next topic this week is going to be on productivity and what productivity actually is and what it isn't. And again, it's going to be a project manager's lens on that. With 13 years of experience, why not bring it to my channel and distribute it on my platforms? Wealth is knowledge, they say. In any case, before letting you go, and that's it for this segment, before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we plan on going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to tune in. We plan on hosting different sessions that provide you with the life skills, the critical thinking, and the soft skills required to derive more meaning and fulfillment out of life. Now, these events are paid events, so if it is the case that you see yourself engaging with our Game Changer community on an ongoing basis, then might I suggest our package plans. If you do purchase a package plan, you get to take advantage of some sweet, sweet deals, which we all love. And also it gives you access to the webinars and workshops that we'll be hosting that will provide further insight into how to cultivate different layers of self-mastery. So much coming, so much growth and evolution with Project Purpose. We're here to support you. We're here to give you the skills you need to make the most out of the life you lead. And we look forward to further engaging with you. Definitely check out the resources that I've provided. I've definitely given you some screenshots to peruse. And I look forward to seeing you in our next segment. We'll talk to you soon.